Hello guys, welcome to another tutorial. Today I'll show you how I made this ruched midi skirt using a basic skirt block. Here are the measurements I used in making the skirt block. So I've gone ahead to divide my waist measurement into half and then into a quarter. Also for the hips, I divided the hips into half and then quarter. So first I'm going to mark the length of the skirt. So for the length, here we have 28. This is a midi skirt, so the length here is 28. So from the top of my paper, I mark the length, which is 28 inches. Also extend that line across. 28. Once that point is marked, and then I just connect these 2 points. So to get the width, I'm going to use half of the hip measurement, which is 20 inches. So I'm going to mark 20 from this side of the paper. And there, mark 20 inches. Extend that line to the bottom. Here we have the length and then we have the width. Now next thing I'll do is divide this width into 2, which half side will be my front and then half side will be my back. So to do that, I'll divide into 2. So 20 inches into 2 is 10 inches. So from this line, I mark 10 inches. So I'm going to call here center front, and then I'm going to call here the center back. Next, I'm going to mark the hip depth, which will be from the waistline. So the hip depth in this case is 11. Now this is 11 because I wanted the skirt slightly high-waisted. So this measurement went a little above my natural waistline. So I'm going to use 11 for that. So from the top, I mark 11 inches. Now mind you, this measurement is without any seam allowance. I'm drafting it without seam. So after making the pattern, I'm going to go ahead and add my seam allowance to the side when I'm cutting. The hip point, the hip depth is marked. I'll call here HD. Now the next thing I'm going to do is measure my waist, measure the waist for the front. So to do this, I'm going to divide my waist measurement into 4, which in this case is 7. So from the CF line, I'm going to mark that 7 for my waist. Now once that is done, I'm going to connect from the waistline to the hip point right here, or to the hip depth. Now for this pattern, there's no dot in the front, so that's why I used my exact quarter waist measurement for this. Now the next thing I'm going to do is shape out the waistline a little bit, which will be 1 inch from the top on the CF line. So on the CF line, I'm going to measure 1 inch down. And then use my French curve and connect like so. The next is to get the waist for the back. So same is going to be quarter waist measurement, but in this case, there's going to be a dot at the back. Go ahead and measure quarter of my waist measurement plus 1 inch. The 1 inch extra will be my dot allowance. So from the CB line, I'm going to measure 7 plus 1, which is 8. That's 1 inch for the dot. So from that 8 inch that I just marked, I'm going to connect to my hip depth again. And once that is done, I'll go ahead to plot my dot. So for the dot, I'm going to measure halfway between this waistline. So that's 8 into 2. 8 divided by 2, that's 4. And that will be right at the center of the back. So this will be the center of my dot. And then the length of my dot will be 5 inches. So from there, I'm just going to mark another 4 here so that I have a straight line to work with. So just to do this. So from there, the length, mark the length of the dot, which is 5. So from there, I just mark 5 right here. And then I connect to the wrist. So my dot is 1 inch, which will give me ½ inch both ways. ½ inch here, ½ inch here. And then connect to the tip. So there, the dot is done. So this is like the basic block. So before I go ahead and trace it out on fold, I'm going to shape the skirt because this is just a straight skirt. I'm going to make it a pencil skirt. Now to do this, I'm going to mark the knee point, which is the waist and knee measurements. Here it's 19 inches. When making a longer skirt or a 6-piece skirt, the waist and knee is usually taken at least 2 inches above your actual knee. Please note. So I'm also going to mark the 19 across. So let's see, have a straight line. Once that is done, I just connect. So from this knee point is where I'll pencil it out from. Now to pencil this, I'm just going to use 1 inch. So 1 inch. Once that is done, I'm going to connect that point from the knee to the hip line. Do the same for the back. From the knee to the hip line. Now this measurement I took here, the same 1 inch, I'm going to mark it here at the bottom. And then also connect here. The same here, 1 inch, also connect. Now the next thing I'm going to shape out is the CB. I'm going to use 1 1/4 inch. I like to shape here more, slightly, so I use 1 1/4. Now whatever I use here will be the same here, so also 1 1/4. And I'm going to go ahead and connect hip line from the knee line to the hip line. There you go. So now my skirt is all shaped out. This will be cut off once I'm tracing the pattern out. Also this is going to be off. So there we have it, the pencil skirt, pencil midi skirt. So now I'm going to go ahead and trace out my front and fold because I'm making an asymmetric design. So I've gone ahead to mark the slit line. Now how I got this was measuring 4 inches from the center front line towards the side on where I want my slit to be. So now once this is done, I'm going to go ahead and mark the points where I want the ruching to be on the skirt. So I want the ruching to stop right around the hip line. It can go slightly down towards this direction, but I want all the ruching to just be right around this line. So I'm going to go ahead and then draw my marks where I'll later do the slash and spread method. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark those design lines. So that will be from this point here, just mark 1. I'm going to do the same in the downward direction. So then I'm just going to label this side front. So I'll go ahead and cut through this line to separate the slit. So once that is done, I'm going to make my mark from here because I want the ruching to be on the slit line. So I'm going to go ahead and slash towards this direction. When I say slash, it means I'm not cutting all the way through the paper. So I'm just going to open from one point to this point, and then when I get here, I stop so that I'll be able to, spread. So here they're all slashed out. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and place on my fabric and cut. So for my fabric, I'll be using this sequins fabric, and then I'll use this cotton as the lining. So to cut the front, I've already laid out the pattern. Now, I'm going to make sure this part is kept straight. The only part I'm going to spread will be where the slashes are. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this part out so that it doesn't move while I'm trying to spread. And I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 inches in between each of these slashes. So the pattern is all pinned out, 2 inch all the way in between here. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my seam allowance. Over here at the slit, I'm going to add I'll just add 3/4 inch around the slit line, and then 1 inch around the side seam and 2 inches on the hem. So I've gone ahead to cut the front. So this is the other side of the skirt, and I went ahead to notch just this point where the first slash started from.